No one has told you this so clearly, but you are also an open book. You believe your thoughts are an impenetrable refuge, that your silence is enough to keep your weaknesses safe. You are wrong.
Every time you meet someone's gaze, every time you look away, every time your breathing quickens, you are revealing entire chapters of your story. Whether you like it or not, everyone leaves traces. Traces invisible to most, but obvious to those who know where to look. Maybe right now, you are convinced that you cannot be deciphered, that no one has the power to bear your mind with a single glance. And that conviction is the first crack. Arrogance has always been the clearest sign that someone has something to hide. What you don't understand is that your own confidence is a paper disguise, so fragile that it falls apart before anyone who masters the art of observation. And that art, in case you didn't know, is not a modern invention. It has been nourished in the shadows for centuries, sharpened in the halls of power, in secret councils where the fate of those who never suspect their will no longer belongs to them is decided. Machiavelli understood this before anyone else. The human mind is a predictable terrain, a board of pieces that move according to impulses not even their owner controls. You can pretend all you want. You can repeat your lies until you convince yourself they are true. But there is always a gesture, a blink, a sigh that betrays you. And when someone knows how to interpret those signals, your will becomes a toy. Imagine for a moment that you could look at anyone and, without saying a word, know what kind of fears eat them up inside. That you could notice the tension that precedes a lie, that you could detect the greed lurking behind a polite smile, that you could recognize in seconds whether you are facing an ally or an enemy. Does that seem exaggerated to you? It's not. In fact, if you don't do it, someone else will do it to you. While you play at seeming indifferent, there are those who specialize in piercing that barrier of indifference with a method so precise it almost seems like heresy. Most people never suspect they are being read. You yourself, while listening to this, wonder if right now you are sending signals you are not aware of. And I assure you, you are. Psychology is a double-edged knife. It can save you from manipulation, or it can turn you into the puppet of whoever knows how to use it. No one wants to admit it, but we are all exposed. Every habit you repeat, every automatic reaction, every slight change in your breathing reveals your true inner state. You can wear the most expensive suit, rehearse the most convincing speech, but if you don't understand how you work, anyone with the right knowledge can dismantle your defenses as if they were made of paper. This is the great secret Machiavelli understood with a pragmatism bordering on cruelty. The man who knows how to look beyond appearances has an advantage over any other. It doesn't matter how high your adversary thinks of himself, how refined his education is, how impenetrable his facade seems. All humans obey the same primitive triggers, and whoever learns to detect them can direct them like a shepherd guides his flock. Maybe now you think I'm exaggerating. Maybe you want to believe you are different, that your mind is a labyrinth with no way out, a place inaccessible even to the most perceptive. But I'm going to tell you something you won't forget. There is no internal wall that can't be knocked down with the right observation. And the most unsettling thing is that many times you will be the one who offers the necessary clues. Sometimes an uncomfortable silence is enough for your mind to start betraying you. Sometimes just naming the exact word, the one that touches the wound you've been trying to hide for years, is enough for your gaze to lose composure and your gestures to begin begging to change the subject. That's what makes this knowledge a weapon. It doesn't need force, nor shouts, nor threats, only precision. only knowing how to look where others look away. And here you are, listening, perhaps unwilling to accept that while I speak, you are already checking your own gestures, wondering if you are just as obvious. The answer is simple. We all are. Only very few dare to admit it. The real question is not whether someone can read you, but what you are going to do with this knowledge. Because today, I'm going to reveal to you 7 ways to bear any person without them noticing. 7 strategies that combine the science of psychology with the predatory instinct Machiavelli cultivated in his treatises. And while others keep believing that smiling is enough to hide their true nature, you will learn to dismantle them with a glance. This knowledge is not for everyone. It is not for those who prefer to keep living in the comfort of ignorance, believing their will is their own, and that their secrets sleep safely under lock and key. This knowledge is for those who dare to face human vulnerability head-on and understand that deep down, we are all equally transparent when someone knows where to look. Now, don't be mistaken. Mastering this art does not turn you into a monster. It turns you into someone awake, someone who has decided to stop being the prey, someone who has understood that if you are not the one who learns to read, sooner or later you will be read by others. Today, you will discover how to recognize a liar before they open their mouth, how to identify the insecurity hidden behind a bluff, how to perceive contempt disguised as courtesy. You will learn to detect the anxiety that precedes deception, the micro-expression that betrays an unconfessable desire, the body language that contradicts every word. And when you do, you will understand why this knowledge has always been reserved for those who understand that power is not shouted, it is exercised silently. If you are willing, if you want to open your eyes and accept that we all play a role but few know how to recognize the real script, stay, because in the next few minutes, you will receive the 7 keys that can open any mind. 7 ways to read anyone instantly. 7 invisible weapons that Machiavelli would have handed to his disciples if he had lived in our time. And when you finish this video, nothing will ever be the same again. And while you think this is all, that you already know the essential mechanisms to decipher others' intentions, let me tell you that you are barely scratching the surface. Because if there is a territory more revealing than the body or the voice, it is silence. Silence is not the absence of information. It is an invisible container where fear and ambition stir more violently than in any word. Machiavelli understood that silence is a more refined weapon than lies, and far more useful than any promise. Watch those who keep silent when they should speak. Notice those who change the subject with studied calm, those who smile while their eyes harden. The real information is not in what is said, but in what is carefully withheld to the point it almost seems natural. Maybe you haven't realized it, but silence has nuances. There is nervous silence, the one that slips between phrases when the mind desperately searches for a credible excuse. There is calculated silence, the pause that lasts just long enough to remind you that the other person has the power to grant or deny you their attention. There is uncomfortable silence when the conversation stumbles upon a truth no one dares to name. And there is silence that is already a declaration, the one Machiavelli would describe as the tacit confirmation of an unconfessed crime. If you want to truly understand someone, learn to listen to what their silence is shouting. But there is something deeper, something few dare to face head-on, the way each person manages their vulnerability. Everyone, absolutely everyone, carries with them a secret inventory of wounds, that determine how they react under pressure. Some hide those wounds behind a facade of self-sufficiency, convinced that arrogance is enough to intimidate anyone who dares get too close. Others prefer to camouflage them under an air of generosity that, in reality, is nothing more than a disguised transaction. I offer you my kindness if you promise not to touch what tears me apart. And then there are those who use victimization as a shield. They believe that if they display their misfortunes with enough drama, no one will suspect their capacity to manipulate. Learning to read vulnerability is not an exercise in cruelty, but in lucidity. Because whoever knows how to detect the hidden wound immediately understands which levers move their interlocutor. Don't be mistaken, everyone has one. Sometimes it is a memory of humiliation that never healed. Other times, it's an ambition so excessive that even its owner dares not confess it. And many times, it is the persistent fear of not being enough, of being irrelevant. Most human relationships, no matter how sophisticated they seem, boil down to these primitive impulses that no one acknowledges aloud. And if you can perceive them, interpret them without passing a single judgment, you will have more power than you imagine. And yet, there is an even more unsettling nuance: the way people react when they feel observed. You can see it in reflexive gestures. The hand that seeks to adjust the sleeve, the lip that moistens, the shoulders that discreetly rise to protect the throat, the eyelids that blink with erratic rhythm. Do you think these are insignificant tics? They are not. Each of those movements is an involuntary confession of insecurity. Machiavelli would write that in those moments the soul is bared, because no one can control their biology when they feel their mask is cracking. Here comes another uncomfortable truth. The most effective way to extract information is not to ask, but to observe how the other reacts to prolonged silence. When you let a void settle between you, you will see how their mind tries to fill it with anything that restores the illusion of control. Maybe they tell you a story that has nothing to do with the subject. Maybe they start justifying a mistake you hadn't even mentioned. Or maybe simply their breathing quickens, betraying that something inside them feels exposed. That reaction is worth more than 1,000 rehearsed words. And if you want to take this knowledge one step further, pay attention to a detail almost no one considers: the order in which a person reveals their story. Most believe what matters are the big events: where they were born, what they studied, who they associate with. But the true map of their psyche is drawn in the way they decide to narrate their past. Notice what part of their story they tell first, what details they omit out of modesty, what episodes they repeat with a tense smile that doesn't fool those who know how to look. The biographical narrative is not a chronology. It is a catalog of traumas, aspirations, and justifications. Learning to decipher that order is like stealing the keys to their own consciousness. While most continue believing they are defined by their appearance or title, the truth is much simpler and, for that reason, much more brutal. We are the result of the stories we choose to tell and those we decide to bury. And when you understand this, every conversation ceases to be a trivial exchange and becomes a topographical map of the human psyche. Every pause, every carefully chosen word, every joke that masks a confession, everything becomes a clue. This is not empty theory. It is the silent practice that separates those who live at the mercy of appearances from those who learn to read the underground currents where everything is decided. Psychology, well used, is a weapon more lethal than any threat, because it disarms without violence. Because when someone knows you are reading them, their will shatters into 1,000 excuses that no longer convince even the one who utters them. So now tell me, Are you willing to look at others with this clarity? Because when you learn to see what they so desperately try to hide, you also force yourself to recognize what you yourself have been denying. This knowledge does not make you untouchable. It makes you responsible. Responsible for knowing more than others are prepared to accept. Responsible for using it with precision and, when necessary, with compassion. But if you don't use it, don't fool yourself. There will be others who will. Others who won't hesitate to exploit your blindness while you comfort yourself thinking appearances are enough. Because the most uncomfortable truth of all is that as long as you keep ignoring these mechanisms, you will continue being the most predictable piece on a board you didn't even know existed. And believe me, there is no more dangerous place than that. And now that you have come this far, that you have endured this harsh truth without looking away, I want you to ask yourself one last question. What are you going to do with all this you have just discovered? Because knowing how to read people is not a decorative talent to show off in an elegant conversation. It is a privilege that demands courage. The courage to understand that every glance, every silence, every word that crosses your path contains a dangerous invitation. The invitation to see the naked essence of whoever is in front of you. Most prefer not to accept that invitation. They live convinced that ignoring the truth is more comfortable than carrying it. But comfort is a luxury for the naive. If you have come this far, it is because you are not one of them. You have decided you prefer the discomfort of lucidity rather than the cheap consolation of blindness. And this is precisely where the most fascinating paradox hides. The more you learn to read others, the more obvious your own transparency becomes. Because understanding another's fragility is a mirror that reminds you of your own. And that should not scare you, but free you. Think about this. We all walk with the same cracks, the same lacks, the same scars that we try to disguise under gestures of self-sufficiency. No one escapes that human condition. The difference is that some learn to recognize it, and others prefer to pretend it doesn't exist. Today, you have crossed the line. You can no longer look at anyone, nor at yourself, the same way. Here, this journey ends. But if you think this is the last frontier, you are mistaken. True knowledge is not a destination, but a territory in perpetual motion. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. Every person you meet from now on will be a new map to decipher, a new opportunity to test how much truth you can bear without breaking. Because, listen carefully, whoever learns to read also learns to carry the weight of everything they discover. That is the price of lucidity. And if you ask me, it is the most dignified price one can pay. Now, I want to propose something that not everyone will accept. If you really feel this knowledge deserves to be shared with more people who keep walking blindfolded, subscribe. Yes, do it now, before your mind plunges back into the fog of the everyday. Subscribing is more than a mechanical gesture. It is a silent reminder that you have chosen the side of those who prefer to see, even if it hurts. And I want you to leave in the comments a phrase that only those who reached this far will understand. Right. Clarity is my advantage. I want to know how many of you had the courage to listen to the last whisper of this message. They will tell you all this is excessive, that life is simpler, that people are more honest than I have described here. Let them believe it, because while they cling to that illusion, you will be prepared. And when the moment comes, when someone tries to wrap you in their disguises, you will be the one who contemplates their truest core with the serenity of someone who already knows that nothing human is completely opaque. Here I say goodbye, but remember this: the minds that are easiest to read are usually the ones that make the most noise to distract you. Learn to look in silence, learn to decipher without announcing it. And above all, never forget that in a world desperate to seem, your ability to see is the only power they cannot take from you. We will see each other soon, in the next whisper of knowledge. And until then, stay alert. Because out there, while you listen to this message, someone is convinced their mask remains intact. Don't remove it all at once. Let them keep the illusion until you decide otherwise.